they're megaliths. They're not even, now they're not standing stones. They're actual structures that have been created from stone, buildings, temples, plazas, houses, all of these different things. But there's really something to say about the energy of the locations as well. The site that I was working on when I was there, and this was back in 2002, was not open to the public. It was a site that had not been open. It is now open to the public. It's the Jaguar Temple. So it's just outside of, I want to say Chichen Itza, I think. But it wasn't open to the public at the time. So it was really, really cool to be there. I got to tell you, I hate the jungle with a passion. It's hot. It's humid. It's noisier at night than it is in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
But the sites are really fascinating. So that
Well, it
kind
would
of
be.
made up for all of the hellish 3 months of torture in terms of the heat and the sun and the bugs and the snakes and the scorpions and all the other things that are joyously enjoying their life in the jungle and not in my boots or in my bed. But yeah, nothing says scorpion check before you go to bed and
Right.
in the morning in your boots and your clothes. But the sites themselves, the energy, and this site in particular, I've been to a few of the other sites as a visitor. And when I was there, we went to a number of sites to see them. But this site in particular really had some kind of energy to it that I have never felt before and I have not experienced since. And it was just, I find it hard to sort of describe. Was there any paranormal activity there? There was some weird ass shit that happened on this site. Paranormal, I don't know. Some of it was just downright terrifying. I have to tell you. There was an instance that there was about 11 of us actually on this one day that were working on a lower portion. I don't know if you're familiar with the Jaguar Temple. If you look it up online, when we first started to work on the site, the upper level had not even been uncovered from the forest. The
Mm-hmm.
jungle had literally taken it over. So we were working on these lower outer walls and we were cleaning and, removing growth and exposing these walls. And I remember one day it was, I don't know exactly how long I'd been there, maybe a month at this point. But there was about 11 of us working on this one end, and it was a very small area, maybe about 6 to 8 feet. And we were cleaning and removing, and it's very tedious. It takes a long time. And we were all there and everybody was just kind of doing their thing. And we're chatting amongst ourselves and nobody's particularly loud or anything. It's pretty hot in the afternoon, later afternoon. And all of a sudden, at least four of us heard this strange high-pitched sound. And I can't say that at that time I had heard anything like it. I had not. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, did you hear that? And we're like, did you hear that? And we're all kind of like, and some people that were just a little bit further down, they didn't hear it. And we were looking at each other and we're like, okay, maybe it's a bird or an animal of some, there's so many weird sounds in the jungle
Out
there,
in the jungle.
especially
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, okay, so we don't think anything of it. And then we continue along and then we hear it again. And at this point now, it sounds like a muffled scream. And we're thinking, okay, what is this? What are we hearing? And I think at that time, one of the professors was with us from the University of Colorado. And We're all kind of like, what are we hearing? And he's like, oh, don't worry, it's probably just, and he's giving us some explanations at the time, and I can't remember what they were. One of them was something like, it's an animal in the jungle, and this is what we're hearing, and it's just echoing through because of where we are. And so we're like, okay, we're trusting this guy, right? It's like, good stuff. We're gonna go on with this story. Um, and weirdly enough, that day we didn't hear it again. And then I happened to be back on that portion of the site again 3 days later with only two other people. And we heard it again. And at that point, it was literally like a blood curdling scream.
Wow.
It was terrifying. And I'm thinking, is it a jaguar? Because jaguars have this really crazy scream, a bit like a cougar or a bobcat. Um, but it was kind of early in the day for that, and they tend to they tend to vocalize a little more in the later dusk and into the dark. And so we thought, oh well, that's great. If it's a jaguar, even better. We're at the jaguar temple. We don't want to see any jaguars. But it wasn't, and then we didn't hear it again. And I want to tell you this because years later, I heard an Aztec death whistle. Have you ever heard these things?
No.
These Mayan and Aztec, they look like a skull, and you blow into them. They sound like a human screaming. And this is
Wow.
as soon as I heard one of these things, I was like, that's what I heard. But how did I hear that? There was nobody else on the site but like 25 of us from different universities, and nobody had one of these whistles. And so it was just really, really weird. So I feel like perhaps we had stumbled into I don't want to say sacrificial, um, ceremony, because for me, this site was technically to attract the jaguars. They used to put monkey meat and things out for the cats. And so I wonder if it was just that maybe they used to blow these whistles to attract the cats when they put the food out. Perhaps there was this loud
Possible.
sort of
Yeah.
whistle that, they would, and the cats could hear this, and it would signal, maybe like a Schrodinger's cat. But it just, years later was when I heard this, and I thought, and now I think about the site and all the people that visit the site now because it's open and they've rebuilt the
Yeah.
roof and they've done all these things. It's a beautiful site.
I
Part of
just
it's
pulled up some
still,
pictures here of the site. It's like, wow. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty spectacular. Now, if you can imagine, Ian, if you see that, you can see that bottom wall that's all carved.
Hmm.
Which would kind of be because the back of the temple they still haven't exposed. There's still a lot of jungle back there, right? But that's the wall we were working on, was that
Oh,
bottom
cool.
wall.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was kind of a freaky thing. So I don't know what to say about that site. Even I just know that it was, more than one of us heard it at the time, but not everybody heard it. So I'm not sure why that was. And then,
Well,
several
maybe
days later,
those of you that heard it, you were meant to hear it.
perhaps,
Because, Trudy and I have been on investigations where she's heard something and I haven't. And she guesses that it was only meant for her.
right,
And same thing, we've also picked up on our digital recorders, EVPs. We
right.
have, the two recorders right there. Only one of them picks up the EVP, the other didn't. And so we think it's like, yeah, but she was meant to
To
hear it
hear
and not
that.
me. So
And I think sometimes too it's that vibration level that we're at as well, right? Because as we've talked about this before, that we all vibrate at sort of different frequencies, some of us closer to each other than others, and perhaps the ones that do vibrate at these levels are the ones that may hear the similar sound at the same time, and people who are not don't hear it at all. Just a little theory that I have put into play from experience of being with like-minded people, or with people that I know, we kind of vibrate at the same level, and we've picked up on similar things in the past.